All right. Welcome everyone. For my blog this week, I wanted to try doing my devotion in a different capacity. Um, so here we are in Mark 14. Um, Verse 1 just sets the stage for our story. It was now 2 days before Passover of the unleavened bread. So, as Mark tells the story of Jesus, as I have a map over here, Jesus' ministry, around the Sea of Galilee, and then when it was time, he made his way to Jerusalem. Um, and so we're picking up the story right here in Bethany. Um, and when we look at Mark 14:3, it says, "And while he was at that's Jesus, while he was at Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, as he was reclining at a table, a woman came with an alabaster flask of ointment of pure nard, very costly. She broke the flask and poured it over his head." Now, if you've gone to church for as long as I have, you've heard this story about this woman many times. Even if in verse 9, Jesus even mentions that the gospel is proclaimed over the whole world, and what she has done is told and will be told in memory of her. So her story is pretty famous. So I'm going to not talk about her today. I want to talk about this character, Simon the leper. For those, if you read through the book of Mark or any of the Gospels for that matter, there are several characters by the name of Simon. Um, there's the big one that comes to mind usually is Simon, the disciple who Jesus renames Peter, um, who became the leader of the early church. There's one story where Jesus is at the house of Simon the Pharisee, um, not to be confused with this house of Simon the leper. Um, so those are the three main ones I can think of off the top of my head. But here's the interesting thing about this guy, Simon the leper. So this is a couple days before the Last Supper and before the crucifixion and all that stuff. And Jesus is at this guy's house. From what I have studied of Jesus and of the power of the Holy Spirit, if anybody's this close to Jesus, I'm guessing they need to call him Simon the ex-leper. Because when Paul would walk from town to town, people would put garments on the road and touch him, and they would be instantly healed. Um, the one lady who touched Jesus's robe was instantly healed. I'm guessing if Jesus is at your house, reclining at your table, my guess is that you're an ex-leper. You've been cured. In fact, if he was still a leper, he would not be inside the town. He would be outside the town, exiled with all the other lepers. So the fact that he's able to return home tells me he's been cured. So why does Mark, the writer of this book, refer to him as Simon the leper? And it's interesting because as humans, as even our society and our culture, we still do this today. We label people and we label things. And it's usually something that's based on our flaws, our mistakes, um, our outward appearance. That's why there's so much name calling in schools, and we all do this. We do this to ourselves. We look in the mirror and all we see are our flaws. And so we label ourselves by our flaws, our gray hairs, our our stretch marks, our our stomach, that kind of stuff. But I want to point out that this book was written by Mark. If it were to have been written by Jesus, this passage would read completely different. If Jesus was in heaven right now recalling this story, he wouldn't be saying, "Oh, I was at some leper's house." He'd be, "I was at my friend Simon's house." And to Jesus wouldn't call him the leper. Jesus would call him Simon the loved, the saved, the forgiven, the friend of Jesus. And I would ask you, as you're watching this today, to look at yourself and look at those around you from Jesus' eyes. What would Jesus call you if he were up there telling a story about you? Would it be the same way you would describe yourself? Is your identity wrapped up in your past, in your mistakes? Or is it wrapped up in Jesus and his love for you? Thank you. Have a good day.